And so we reach the end of the week and our second very interesting verse in First John 5:8. So this is the way all modern Greek um, New Testament um, generally read. The reason I'm hemming and hawing is because, of course, you can buy a majority text. Actually, this should not be in a majority text, not in relation to the Greek. Um, Now, I think the New King James snuck in this kind of the older King James version by going with maybe Latin manuscripts, but even that doesn't work. It really doesn't. The majority of Greek manuscripts, the majority of all manuscripts, do not have the reading from the King James, which is down here. It should not be in the majority text. In fact, I didn't share this um, in my yesterday's video, but hold that thought. Let's go ahead and translate it, and then I'll tell you a little story about Erasmus. Okay, so can you translate this? The Spirit and the water and the blood, and the three are unto the one. So, in the modern reconstruction of the Greek text, the way verses 7 and 8 work together are verse 7, and there are three who are witnessing, verse 8, the Spirit, the water, and the blood, and these three are one. So in its original context to First John, um, the idea here is the blood of Christ, the water at the baptism, and I assume the Spirit is perhaps at the baptism, the Spirit, this is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased, maybe. I can't prove that. But basically, in the original of First John, this is not a Trinitarian statement. It's not about the Trinity at all. That's not what the verse was originally about. In the original context, John is dealing with Gnosticism. And so this is not, the original context is not about the Trinity. The original context is bearing witness to the fullness of Christ, not only as the one who came by water, but the one who also came by blood. And so, again, there's nothing. So the King James version is based upon the Textus Receptus, which has this extra stuff. And three are the ones witnessing on earth: the Spirit and the water. The rest of it's the same. So what the Latin tradition did here, and it may have been based upon Tertullian and Cyprian and some of those. Um, uh, I had a little dialogue with I forget what your handle is, but which came first, the chicken or the egg? The verse probably in Latin developed out of you notice it's a Latin tradition, Tertullian, Cyprian. The verse arguably developed out of them. They are not quoting the verse. Again, there are four Greek manuscripts, four that have this fuller reading. In two of them, it's a margin in a much later hand. Only one of them is before 1500, I think. It's simply by any, if you're interested in evidence at all, um, again, there are very ingenious, intelligent people who, again, being intelligent is not at all a sign of being right. In fact, sometimes as I was going through my education, I thought, I'm just not smart enough to come up with some of the kind of ridiculous, ingenious. If you know me as a teacher, if I say that's ingenious, probably I'm only complimenting your intellect. I'm probably saying that's outrageous. That's ridiculous, but ingenious. I mean, you have to be brilliant to even think of such ridiculous possibilities. I'm just a caveman. This is a simple kind of thing. And the fact that this verse it simply did not feature at Nicaea, that in and of itself is incontrovertible against the originality of these. And so the original simply said, there are three that bear witness: the Spirit, the water, and the blood, and these three are one. The Latin tradition added, there are three who bear witness in heaven, the Father, the Word, and the Spirit, and there are three that bear witness on earth, the Spirit, the water. So why is the Spirit mentioned? It's completely anachronistic. John is dealing with Gnostics who deny the blood of Christ, and that's what this verse was originally about. Oh, now let me tell you the story of Erasmus. Okay, it is, this wouldn't even be in the King James if Erasmus had gone with his own instincts. When Erasmus was putting together the first Greek um, printing, movable type set for the first printed Greek Bible of any kind of impact. There was a group of scholars in Spain who were working on something. It had no impact on church history really at all. Erasmus is the basis for the King James. Erasmus did not put the longer version of these verses in his first edition. He didn't, because Erasmus did not think, this is Erasmus, the basis of the King James Greek text, ultimately, did not put these extra words into the first edition because he did not think they were original. The Roman Catholic Church, and most people who would care about the King James, are virulently anti-Catholic. And so it's ironic that Erasmus argued against Martin Luther in favor of Catholicism. Anyway, it's fun. And of course, King James was probably gay, but that's not important right now. But so Erasmus was not going to put these extra words into that Greek text, but the Catholic Church said, this is important. This needs to be in. And according to the story, Erasmus says, if you can show me one Greek manuscript that has this wording in it, then I'll put it in. And so one was quickly prepared for him. Or as he put it, the ink was still wet, when he received it. Those ultimately, the people who defend this defend it over sentimentality. And it's just kind of funny to think that if Erasmus had had his way, they wouldn't be defending it at all. It is simply the fact that the Roman Catholic Church convinced Erasmus to put it into later editions of his Greek text, and therefore it made its way into what became the Textus Receptus, which became the basis for the King James. And because the King James has been around for so long, and we are sentimentally, don't get me wrong, I like the King James, and I have nothing wrong with the content of these verses in the King James, but it is only the sentimental attachment that has created a whole industry of ingenious, very intelligent. Man, the knowledge of the church fathers and the knowledge of the ins and outs of ancient manuscripts and texts. Don't get me wrong, those who support the King James Greek tradition are very, very intelligent people. I'm just a caveman, and I'm sorry, it just is ridiculous. Anybody, if you have any interest in truth at all, any interest at all, rather than simply using your intellect to try to defend things that are not at all likely at all. Nobody who's interested in the truth will come up with that conclusion. I don't care what Chick Track thinks. Chick Track is ridiculous anyway. If you're into Chick Tracks, Chick Tracks are basically a cottage industry of trying to support implausible and unlikely things. Okay, these are my opinions. They are not necessarily those of some other people. They are, however, the opinion of the overwhelming majority of those who are experts on these subjects. Well, I got a little out of hand again. Please forgive me. I don't mean it personally, although I don't know if it came. So you have to realize I'm talking to myself because I used to do that. I used to read Chick Tracts. I used to be a King James person. And again, I like the King James. I'm not against the King James. I'm not against the way these verses read in the King James. If I were preaching at a King James church, I could preach from these verses. They're great verses. They're just not at all likely to have been in the original of First John. And that's not just my opinion. That is the educated opinion of the overwhelming majority of experts. I'm just going to leave it there. And thankfully, you don't know where I live. So you can't come get me. So Thank you very much. This has been, oh, wait, there's more, isn't there? Grammar. There wasn't a lot of, okay, here's the translation. The spirit and the water and the blood and the three unto the one are. Or is it, um, and three are the ones witnessing on the earth, and the rest is the same. Grammar. Oh, and the rest is the same. Grammar, there wasn't anything really interesting here except for maybe the word for one. This is the neuter form of the word for one. The word one is a little bit annoying at first, but once you have it memorized, it's nice. So this is haste. It looks like ace, the preposition. That's what makes it annoying. But ace, the preposition, doesn't have an accent, and it has a smooth breathing mark. Haste, the masculine form of the word for one, has a rough breathing mark and a circumflex accent. The feminine form, I didn't put it here, is Mia. It just goes into a completely different form for the feminine. And then hen is the neuter form with a rough breathing mark and an accent. It looks like N, the preposition, but the preposition N is a smooth breathing mark and has no accent. By the way, the number one in Greek only appears in the singular. Okay, so that is, and this accusative because it's into the one. And so ace is a little dictator that says, you will be in the accusative case if you go with me. Okay, that brings us to the pronunciation. Can you pronounce it? To pneuma, kai to hudor, kai to haima, kai hoi trace, ace to hen, asen. We're trying to put it together. Toponuma, kai to hodor, kai to haima. Kai kai ho trace ace to n toponuma kai to hodor kai to haima kai hoi trace ace to hen asen. Okay, got it out. Or is it kai trace asen hoi marturuntes entege ho pneuma kai to hodor kai to haima kai hoi trace ace to hen asen. All right, well, we'll go back to the boring verses. They're not boring. They're inspired verses, and they're very important. But they don't have the intrigue with verse 9. So we will continue on Monday, Lord willing, if you don't find me.